Hello, guys, and welcome to the Sports Life Podcast. I'm your host, Samson George, here again, joined by John George. What's up, John?
What's up? Thank you for having me here.
And guys, episode number 19, almost close to episode 20. So, it's almost time, and we said we are gonna make a big podcast for episode 20. Yeah. So, consistently Tuesday and Thursdays we've been here, guys. So make sure you guys keep checking out Sports Library, the Sports Library website. Make sure you guys check out. We got daily articles coming out every single day. Make sure you guys check out the Sports Library TikToks. We got daily TikTok takes where we talk about sports news throughout the year, and we're running up the views. So make sure you guys check out make sure y'all follow and give us a couple of likes on that, and make sure you guys also check out the Sports Library podcast. We have the Sports Library Patreon. If you guys are interested in joining the Patreon, we have a video podcast and exclusive articles that you can only find on the Sports Library Patreon. So make sure you guys, if you guys are interested and you guys want to support us that way, that's the best way to do it. So thank you guys. Again, thank you, John, for being here.
Thank you for having me here.
We got a big episode, a big special episode here, joined by Richie. He's the baseball writer at Sports Library. So thank you, Richie, for joining us today.
I'm Samson.
And then
and then the big guest.
We got the big guest, Michael Hoecht, NFL defensive tackle for the LA Rams. So thank you, Michael, for taking time out of your day to come out and have a good conversation with us.
Having me, guys. Excited to be lucky guest number 19.
Thank you, man.
Thank you.
First, you're our first NFL guest. Really, our first guest on the podcast. Yeah. So this is kind of a big.
Lucky number one, then.
Yep. To start, hopefully something great. And if you guys don't know who Michael Hoecht is, he's got drafted from the Ottawa Red Blacks. Now he's on the LA Rams. Signed last year. He was on the practice squad last year, and he's a defensive tackle for the LA Rams. Hopefully, I'm guessing you want to get a great 2021 season. Hopefully, to get into to make your legacy.
Yeah, definitely. I think this first year, my mentality was it was a redshirt year, and so it was time to be like around that group, around some really good players, and grow and develop. And then this upcoming year is going to be what I'm sort of treating as my rookie year.
That's awesome. Most players who do start up with like the red shirt and on the practice squad, they don't really get a second chance. So I know this like you're sort of like you're gonna bring your all, and I'm excited to see you play this upcoming season.
Appreciate it.
Guys, that's a little bit about Michael. That's a little bit about us. So, John, do you want to just ask kind of your first sort of question for Michael?
Yes. So the question for me is, what do you like to do when you're not for fun, when you're not playing football?
So outside of football, it really comes down to I like to read books, play some video games, make sure I like stay up to date with friends and family because the season's obviously really busy. It's very long, which is great. That's why that's why we love it. But the off season is very much for the relaxation, taking care of the brain, making sure you're training, and then just keeping those personal relationships that really keep your head on straight and make sure you have that really good support system. So that involves family, involves friends, involves other colleagues that you come across. So just really making sure that those are all good, and just spending time outside. I'm a big believer that fresh air does a lot for you. So any chance I can be outside, definitely gonna take that opportunity.
That's good.
So you said you like reading books. So like I'm a Seahawks fan, and I know you're a Rams. They're kind of rivals here, but I know the Seahawks, especially the defensive coordinator, they sort of have. The defense has sort of have like a reading book club where they all like meet up and read books and sort of do that thing. Is that like an NFL thing, or is this like
not that I've come across yet, but lots of guys in locker rooms, there's never a shortage of good recommendations. As far as like what you need, and guys can pull from. It doesn't necessarily have to be football. Like I pull a ton of books from. There's guys in the NBA that have good book lists, or just other podcasts that guests have been on. I pull a lot from there, so I try and do some. I try and hit a large range of different topics and stuff.
I have a question. Go ahead. So what's your favorite book like to read? Like that's my.
What's like a top 3 books?
Yeah.
Let me see. I guess we'll just go recently. Recently, I really liked Shoe Dog, the memoir by Phil Knight, the creator of Nike. Daily Stoic is really good. What else have I done recently? Oh, Can't Hurt Me, the David Goggins memoir. That one's, if you're playing any type of sports, that guy is just, if you follow him on Instagram too,
Mm-hmm.
he's a pretty spectacular person, and he's just the most motivating individual you'll ever come across. The Jordan Rules. If you're a Jordan fan and you watch The Last Dance, if you are like everybody else and you want to dive a little deeper into it, Jordan Rules is good. Um, yeah, I guess those are the ones that kind of come to mind. I'm sure I'm missing a ton, but those are what come to mind.
That's good.
And you said video games. Like, are you like a Madden guy or a 2K guy or like Call of Duty? What?
Yeah, I would say I'm not very good at video games, but I enjoy it. So I would say I'm a social gamer. So whatever sort of the boys are playing that night, I'll hop on, play some Madden, play some 2K, Warzone here, the Call of Duty, just kind of like whatever other people are playing. It's more a chance to socialize than it is necessarily a competitive outlet for me.
Yeah, and yeah, that's sort of like relaxation. That's sort of taking time away from football. I'm sure you spend a bunch of hours, watching film, studying tape, and then going to practice. So like those other hobbies with reading and spending time with family, you also said, and video game. I think those are pretty big things.
And it keeps you well rounded, it keeps you balanced, which I think is very important for maintaining the level of performance that you need throughout the season.
Exactly. I guess we can kind of keep going. So I kind of want to know, so, like, what's like the origin story of Michael Hoecht? If people don't know about you, really, like, how did you get into football? Was it like more of like did you always know you were gonna play football as a kid, or did you just do it as a hobby and it turned out now you're an NFL player, or like how did it happen?
So I grew up in Oakwood, Ohio, which it's one of those towns in the Midwest where the entire city revolves around the Friday Night Lights football.
Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of grew up idolizing those guys who were playing high school football under the lights. And, I'm a little kid, I'm wearing my Pee Wee jersey, and, they're the same high school there. So I would say that's probably how I got into it, just because I fell in love with that atmosphere, the band playing, the whole community's out there. And there's really nothing like it. And so I would say that's how I started. And then I found out pretty quickly that I was pretty good at football, which, once seventh or eighth grade hit and the weight restriction for running the football was lifted, I switched to become a running back. And, from that point, it was just, feed me the rock and I'm going to go, run some people over. And that's when, like, sort of made me fall in love with football. But, I knew I wasn't a running back. I was a running back because I was 260 pounds and everybody else was 180. So, those were some of the days. And then, coming into college, I knew I wanted to play defensive line, so I grew up in Ohio and, I idolized the Bosa brothers and just sort of like these great defensive linemen. And so I knew that's what I wanted to do in college. And so I went, what kid doesn't have the NFL in the back of his head when he's coming in to play college?
Yep.
But I chose Brown mainly because I sort of went with the broken leg model where, if one day you snap your leg and you're no longer able to play football, what are you going to do? And Brown really gave me that good backup plan and that good balance, such that if one day my football career were over and if I just turned out not to be good enough to go to the NFL, then I would fall back on a good degree and be able to move on to something else.
Yeah, like I've heard about a lot of players who go to like Harvard to play football. They end up still having great careers because they still went to Harvard and got
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, if you're good enough, NFL teams will find you. So their scouting departments, they're very thorough. It doesn't matter if you go to D3, D2, D1, D1 AA, wherever you are, if you're good enough, they'll find you.
And so were you like the summers, like middle school, high school, were you in the summers going to these sort of like camps like a lot of kids do, or were you sort of like doing your own thing and then you performed really well in high school? Is that how it went, or how did it go for you?
So the summer before my senior year, my mom and I went on a road trip and we visited a whole bunch of schools that we were interested in. We did the camps. And the camps definitely were where I got the most exposure because my high school was tiny. There's, it's a small school. It's not really like a big powerhouse school or anything like that. And I think I got a lot of my exposure through those camps. And it was also just fun to like go see all those colleges and start to get recruited. But yeah, no, I would definitely recommend, because college coaches, it's hard to tell that much based on tape. There's just not that much high school film, and usually high schools don't have the best camera angles and everything. It's hard to get really good tape, but if you go to the camp and you can actually perform well, I think that's a really good way for college coaches to evaluate talent.
So yeah, like I know because we're in Texas, so like Texas high school football is already big here. But like you see kids like fifth grade, sixth grade already like in these camps, and it's almost sort of like a college camp. Like it's crazy over here. And
I mean, it just starts earlier and earlier, and I think those are always good to develop skills. And I was doing local camps and stuff around, just basically run by the high school football team, or doing different overnight basketball camps and stuff. But it's the most important to do the summer before your senior year, because that's when college scouts are really looking at you from a development, like how much have you grown? And then they're also looking for character. They're looking for, the heart of, is this guy going to give me everything he has for 4 years? Because that's kind of the deal. They're trading you an education for your athletic ability.
Is the word, yeah, the scholarships and those 4 years, you're kind of investing in a player, sort of.
Exactly. And especially with guys who are looking to go to maybe like a D1 AA or D2, D3 school where might not necessarily be a scholarship. I think it's helpful to realize that these coaches, they have to take guys that are going to stick around for all 4 years or 5 years. And because there's no scholarship, there's nothing to say, players can just kind of walk away from the football aspect. So they're really trying to find kids with good character who aren't going to, if things get tough, walk away from the program because they're not on scholarship and they have that option too. So if you're looking to go to a school like that, you really want to show the coach that you're in it for 4 years, you're in it for 5 years, no matter what.
And you sort of highlighted the senior year. You said summer camps before senior year. Is senior year like? Would you say out of the 4 years in high school, that's the most important year in high school football, or?
Yeah, I would probably say that your senior season highlights are huge. If you can go to those camps the summer before, those are always really helpful. Every camp I went to, I ended up getting an offer from, and so by the time a couple weeks into the season, I was ready to sign my letter of intent, which is a big stress reliever. But if you don't have the availability to be able to get out to these camps, make sure you put together the best possible highlight package that you can, and then just cast a wide net, send it to everybody, because you never know what coach sees it and then coach moves, or head coach leaves and brings his coach with them, and you never know who you're going to make an impression on. So I wouldn't count anybody out. And if you're really looking to play ball at the next level, just send and cast a wide net and see, honestly, what sticks.
Yep. I also agree with that. Richie, you want to sort of add a little bit too? You got any question about his sort of upbringing and like high school football a little bit?
Have you was there any like notable players you played with that in high school or against in high school that are like in the NFL now, or like big college players?
Not in football. I played against my junior year in high school. Luke Kennard played for Franklin for basketball. He's point guard. I think he's on the Clippers now. He was on the Pistons. But he was the biggest name in. So I played in the Southwestern Buckeye League, and he was always the biggest name in that league because he was Team USA basketball, Mr. Ohio Basketball Player of the Year. He played quarterback before I got there, but by the time I got there in my junior year, I'm pretty sure Duke told him that he wasn't allowed to play quarterback anymore, because why do you need to if you're committed to Duke for basketball? So not any big name football players, but we kind of I did get to play against him in basketball.
So was he in your grade, or was he?
He was a year older than me, so he graduated class of 2015.
Oh, nice. Yeah, we had I don't know if you know, but Marcus Smart, he went to our high school. He's now on the Celtics. Boston Celtics. Yeah, and I actually I had a teacher who actually was always talking about him because he had the same class as him. But yeah, I got to meet him, and I'm pretty sure his parents' house or his childhood home is in our neighborhood somewhere here. So yeah,
Yeah, if you can line up him for guest number 2, you got a good 1-2 punch there.
You literally just like walk over to it, just like knock on the door. But yeah, I mean, yeah, that's sort of. I was always interested in like in an NFL player, like how they get started, like if they always knew about, if they sort of had in their back of their mind, like, hey, I think I'm supposed to go into the NFL, or yeah, like capable of getting into the NFL, or like it was just like one day like just hanging around with friends, and then that's just sort of how it started. So like you said, you played your freshman and sophomore year in Canada, and then your junior and senior year in Ohio, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So like, what are some of the biggest difference between like playing in Canada and playing in America? Is it as big in Canada as it is in America?
It can be. It kind of depends where you are. So, I mean, first of all, there's obviously the rule changes. So you play, Canadian rules football, field's a little bit bigger, the ball's a different shape, it's pretty fat. And then, there's 3 downs, but, you get some interesting combinations because a lot of these leagues in Canada will, they try and give opportunities to guys to sort of feed them into the US if they want to be able to do that. So you get some cool leagues where, you'll play on a Canadian football field, but you'll play 4 downs, but you'll play Canadian rules where you can have guys in motion. So you get sort of like these weird hybrid style leagues. But I would say the biggest difference really is going to be that it doesn't necessarily run around the high schools. So, Friday Night Lights, at least where I was, never really was a big thing. We would play games on like Wednesday afternoons at 2:30, which I always thought was a little odd, but it's still
like
fun.
The middle of the day.
You're not going to get any fans. Everybody's working. It's just, it's kind of like, it just becomes like, an extracurricular activity, which, it's fun. It's still good football and you still get really good athletes. But I think a lot of the really good football players and the guys in Canada who are pretty serious about either playing in college in Canada, playing in college in the US, eventually looking to the CFL, NFL as a, future job. There's a lot of like regional teams, at least where I was. So, I played a season for the high school. And then as soon as that wrapped up, I would go play another season for like the local area team. And that can pull from a wider area. So you get, a little bit more talent and a bigger pool of guys who are more serious about football.
So what's like the recruiting process? Is it the same in America? Like, do they have camps in Canada? I'm guessing they are, but is it like that? Or
I imagine they would. And I imagine at least, for D1 AA schools, at least for Brown specifically, and I think this holds true for most D1 AA schools, is that they have questionnaires and you really want to reach out to whatever position coach is recruiting your area. So, and almost all of them will have a Canada recruiting coach. So, just go on their Twitter or whatever, find who recruits Canada, and then just shoot them a message being like, hey, I'm from Canada, interested in playing football. And they'll usually send you a questionnaire so they can collect your information and start watching your film.
So sort of like how here, like where athletes sort of like send out their tapes to coaches.
Yeah, it's very similar. And, that goes down to the same basic principle of just cast a wide net. So if you're in Canada and you're trying to play ball in the US, or you're even, I'm sure it holds true if you're trying to stay in Canada and play college ball in Canada, you would want to just send your film out to every school that you can.
Exactly. Richard, do you have anything you have anything you want to add to that, or?
No, it's interesting though. Like, I didn't know that there was only 3 downs in Canada. That's crazy.
Yeah. So, and the CFL, they play, I think the biggest rules are it's a wider field, it's a longer field. The goalpost at the front of the end zone, which I always think is a bit odd. And you can, they'll use it for running a pick route, and they'll use it to get defenders and use them as, part of the play. I'm pretty sure you can get a point if you kick it out of the back of the end zone on a kickoff. My story comes to mind on that. My brother also played football, and he played Canadian rules football when we were up there. And there was some sort of championship that I played. I don't know if it was divisional, regional, some sort of championship here he played. And the final score of the game was 4-3. And it was a monsoon, like just, the grittiest football weather you can imagine. it's pouring rain, mud everywhere, and it was 4-3 being a field goal for both teams, and then my brother's team kicked out of the back of the end zone for 1 point to win the game.
Oh wow.
That's crazy.
Wait, so the point system is the same, like a touchdown still 6 points.
Yeah, that stuff all still works the same. It's
Okay.
just that there's 3 downs, wider field, bigger ball, and then you can have receivers in motion at the snap of the ball.
Oh yeah. I think you can also do that in the XFL.
Yeah, I mean, it does, from a player safety standpoint, having guys who are in full speed coming down to crack DNs and crack linebackers, I think that might be a tough sell. But it does make for some pretty great highlights. If you go on YouTube and just Google like biggest CFL hits, you get some pretty awesome stuff. I mean, they're like all these leagues are still trying to protect all their players and still trying to make sure that players are safe.
Yeah.
But the further back you go, obviously the bigger and more dangerous hits that you get, and they're just not penalties either.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah. That's also because again, I haven't been to Canada. I haven't seen much Canada football. I've seen like a couple games, but yeah, just me and you knowing that you've been there, that's pretty cool. That you've had that experience. That not a lot of NFL players like come from Canada to the NFL. So that's pretty cool. So like you said, you went to Brown University, so that way you could sort of if let's just say like your NFL career didn't work out, you could have fallen back on a degree. Was it just about academics, or was it what specifically about the Brown University program that made you excited to join them?
There's definitely multiple things that kind of go into making that decision. Really good advice that I got going through it was, don't choose the school solely based on the football. Go to a school that you would really enjoy going to, and then just have football just make it so much better. So I really liked Brown for a couple reasons. In the back of my head, I knew I was going to be playing sports. So they have an open curriculum where you can take a lot of different classes outside your field of study. So I was really interested in doing that. And then, they have pass-fail options, which make managing classes in season versus out of season a lot easier. And then I think I really just connected with the vibe of the campus. I really liked the people that I met there. And then I also really liked the coaching staff and, what Brown sort of represented, this, gritty style football. And, everything about it just kind of really sat well with me. And they were my number one choice going in. And I was, super fortunate to be able to get an offer from there and be able to go have the career that I did there.
So you said you sort of had in the back of your head that you knew Brown University, but were there other offers that you were sort of thinking about maybe in case, or was it always was it specifically only Brown?
Yeah, I had. I think the schools that I finally had were Lehigh, James Madison, Butler, Cornell, and Brown. So all D1 AA, similar size schools. And then for me, I think it boiled. Well, James Madison wanted me to play offensive line, and I did not like the thought of that. So I told them no. And then so it kind of boiled down to Brown, Lehigh, and Cornell, all because they're good schools. And, that same sort of thing that I mentioned earlier, the broken leg model, where if I wasn't able to play football anymore, what school would be the right school for me? And, Brown just was the obvious answer to me in that situation.
You want to ask about sort of college football and how life went?
So the question is how is it different than high school to college football? How is it different?
What are some differences what is the biggest difference between high school football and college football? Because a lot of high school athletes think it's kind of the same, but it's what are some major differences?
I think the biggest things that change are not necessarily what's going on, but I think you just have so much more time to work on the actual football piece of it. Whereas high school, you're sort of limited to, a couple months of the summer and then the actual in season. and then it kind of stops. Like some schools, have workouts, but a lot of people play other sports, which I, am a big believer in multi-sport athlete in high schools. Um, and so I think you sort of get football year round, which is where I think you get a lot of really good development as far as, you have rigorous off-season training programs, you have winter workouts, you have spring football. Depending on what school you go to, you stay in the summer and you train all summer. So you sort of transition from this life of football is from August to November into football's a year-round thing. And I think that's really good. If you're interested and you're passionate about football, then that's the best thing in the world. If you really aren't that interested in football and you really just want to, you think, oh, I like football, but let's try it out in college. Like those types of kids don't make it. So, if you're looking to play college football, you got to know that it's a year-round commitment and it's going to be 4 or 5 years, which is awesome. At least I loved it. I loved every second of it. And I would say it's very similar in the transition from college to the NFL too, where football just becomes your life. And the biggest difference becomes from college to the NFL is the talent level. So rather than you're playing against as a freshman in college, the biggest difference you're going to play against a guy who's maybe 5 years older than you. You get to the NFL, you're playing a guy who's 8, 9 years older than you, who knows every trick in the book, knows everything to do, has just perfected his craft. And so with the NFL, you got to learn fast because, it's a business and they're looking to have the best players on the field at all times. And if you're not ready to go, then you're not ready to go. Whereas college, I think it's a little different because if you're on scholarship, they've invested something in you already. And so, they'll develop you. Now, obviously, with all that said, the Rams are spectacular with developing guys. So, they like to keep guys in their practice squad, develop them, grow them, build their guys. But I know that's not true for every single NFL team.
So you said that sort of transition from high school football being from August to November to college football year round. Is that a hard transition to make? Or do you think you kind of get used to it pretty quickly, or?
I think you get used to it pretty quickly. I think it helps if you have a good group of guys. So if you're instantly put in a locker room with 100 guys and if you don't really like them, I imagine it can get kind of tough. But I was thankfully that I had a really good group of friends. We all really liked each other. The locker room was one of the most fun places to be. And I still keep in contact with all those guys. So I think it makes it a lot easier for two things. One, you got to love football. If you don't love football, you're going to hate it. Second, you got to have good friends and, having those guys waking up at 5 a.m., driving over and everybody's, it's winter workout number 8. Everybody's sore. Everybody's tired. All the cafeterias are closed. So you're eating Cliff bars and bananas that have been left out and they're half frozen. But those are the memories. Those are the best. That's what makes college football is that's the fun part of it.
The sort of team dinners, because I know in high school it's a big thing.
And just being on the road and buses traveling across the country to go play football. There really is nothing like it.
Yeah, that's where because I used to play football. I just played JV, but I know we had team bonding, those sort of team dinners, those little games, to get because you're kind of you said these are your brothers, they're not these guys aren't just players. You're not just playing with them. You really want to get to know them, and you guys are all fighting for one goal, and that's hopefully to win the championship at the end. Yeah, to get
win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, in the Super Bowl in the NFL. Richie, do you want to sort of add anything about sort of college life or?
I was gonna ask you some. I can move on if you want, Samson.
Oh yeah, we can keep going. So I know Michael, last year in 2020 draft, you didn't get your name called in the draft, and most players they sort of kind of quit on their dreams since that doesn't happen. They don't get their name called. But how did you use that as motivation to get back to the NFL? And how did you feel how did you take that in?
So talking with my agent and going through that whole process, I kind of knew you usually have a pretty good idea about where you are. So I knew I was going to be a fringe guy. I was either going to be, a late 7th round guy or an undrafted guy. And through the conversation I had with my agent, watching the draft and seeing how things were kind of shaking out, I kind of knew that I was going to go undrafted, which I was totally cool with. Any shot is a good shot. And depending on how you look at it, if you get drafted, that's obviously, it's a nice feeling and everything, but your rookie contract becomes 4 years. Whereas if you're undrafted, your rookie contract's 3 years. So you're a year closer towards that second contract, which is usually when guys get paid. So you can look at it whatever way you want. So, if you're drafted, bigger signing bonus up front, but then you're on the 4-year contract. Whereas if you perform the exact same, you perform well and you went undrafted, you're a year closer to, making your actual money. So that really didn't affect me too much, only because I had, super realistic expectations. And I knew that I was going to get some undrafted offers and I was at least going to get my shot. Now, if you rewind a couple weeks and it's March 2020 and everything shuts down, and my pro day is canceled and I had to work out with the Bengals and the 49ers and those all get canceled. That's when a little bit of like okay, I might not get a shot here. That's when that
could have really been that could have been the turning point. Those pro days.
I imagine for a lot of people that was the end of it, because if guys who were even more fringe than I was, if you don't have a pro day and you don't have any exposure, or if you haven't signed with an agent yet, that's the end of the road. And I know that happened to a lot of people. So when that all went down, it was immediate. Okay, now what do I do? And it was I recorded a virtual pro day. I put everything together. I put 40 time, 3-cone, 5-10-5, vert, broad jump, bench, literally anything I could get my hands on. I was running routes as a tight end and filming that. I was running through bag drills, just anything that any NFL coach would want to see. And I put it together in these videos, and I just had my agent send it to everybody. And so, if nobody's on the road and nobody's doing scouts, then they're going to be in front of their computers. And that's how I got to get eyeballs on me. And, obviously that worked because the Rams really liked what they saw.
So that video that you're talking about, that's the one where you're running that 4.65, like the 40?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, I mean, that's especially since you're what, 6'7", 6'6", I believe?
6'4".
Oh, 6'4",
I'd love to be 6'4".
right.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, you're still a defensive end in the NFL. Like running a 4.6, we just saw Justin Fields run a 4.3. So I mean, maybe you might beat him one day.
Going into my pro day that I was going to test really well, which is why I was so bummed out when the pro day got canceled. I've tested well. I think I have that good combination of size and speed, which I was excited to show. But I'm never going to complain, because there's been people who have been so much worse off, and I've had zero problems managing and navigating the whole pandemic. So everything worked out. And so I'm never going to complain at all about my situation.
And that pro day, you set it up for yourself. That wasn't an organized thing, right? That was just you just got you and your buddies.
Shot on an iPhone camera and put together an iMovie and then sent out an email to NFL coaches.
I mean, yeah, that's kind of what it takes. You gotta set up. Sometimes, if you don't.
So you had to be able to adapt.
Yeah, live and learn. Rich, you got a question about his sort of pro day, or sort of.
I have a question, sort of revolving around getting drafted and getting signed. Was there a point in your life when you knew you had a shot? Because everyone says middle school, high school, you have a shot.
No, my moment was probably in college. So freshman year, I got to play time, got some good stats. Same with sophomore year. And I think it was before my junior year. I'm not sure exactly where the information came from, but it sort of came from somewhere that I was, I had the size and the speed and some of the talent that this could be a real opportunity. And once you kind of hear that, you cannot close that door. That is your sole focus. So I think my junior and senior year of college, it was pretty much entirely dedicated to pursuing this. And I'm really glad I did, because, the past year has just been amazing.
Yeah, especially had an interesting time because of the whole COVID and the pandemic thing. So that especially when you had your own pro day, that's also pretty inspiring, at least for me, setting up yourself and not quitting on your dreams, sort of that sort of thing. So like you said, you were a practice squad member for the LA Rams, but you got to go to all the games. what is like that moment? What was your like aha moment? Like, wow, I'm in the NFL. Like, what? I know a lot of people have like sort of welcome to the NFL moments. Like, what was yours for that?
Mine was definitely during training camp. So you don't get, or at least this year, we didn't get to do any preseason games or do any, intra squad practices, that they usually do. But we did do a sort of live scrimmage down at SoFi Stadium, and that stadium is just
It's crazy. It's crazy.
enormous, and
It's
it's
a new
bigger than
stadium.
anything I've ever seen. I didn't go to a Power Five school. I went to Brown, which doesn't necessarily give the same type of environment as the SoFi does. And so the first time like stepping onto that field and walking on, and they had the PA system blasting fan noise and blasting music, and all the lights are like going off, and it's hot LA warm weather, and we're wearing like game jerseys and everything, and it is adrenaline pumping through the veins, and you are ready to rock and roll. That was definitely my welcome to the NFL moment, because there is nothing like the anticipation before playing football in a stadium like that.
And you also sort of like, since your rookie year, you didn't get any fans in the stadium. Like, what sort of like, and is there like sort of like a lot of people say like the fans really get the players hype? I know like a lot of NFL players weren't happy with like some stadiums not having fans. Like, do you like clearly miss it, or like does the fan noise like they put in the speakers, does that work? Or?
I think definitely near the beginning, so I don't really have a term of reference for a packed NFL stadium being down on the field like that. But I think at the beginning, people sort of missed it. But I think after a couple of weeks of no fans, we kind of got used to it, and I think the level of play maintained itself. So the same thing with everybody going through the pandemic, you just kind of had to learn to adapt. So I think everybody involved and all the players, they had to find a way to self-motivate, and the stadiums did a really good job about doing a lot of the animations all throughout the stadiums, having the jumbotron going as if there were fans there, to try and give it as authentic of an experience as possible.
And what is sort of like take us through like your sort of a game day week, like Monday through Sunday, like take us sort of like that sort of schedule. Is it like really like hectic, or?
It can change week to week, which is actually a big difference between the NFL and college. It's college, you're always playing Saturdays with the rare exception of maybe a Friday game. Whereas NFL, you're mostly Sunday, but you could be Thursday, you could be Monday, you have a bye week in there. So it really changes. So the Rams are really, really good in my experience about keeping guys healthy, keeping guys fresh. And so, typically we'll do a uppers practice on the first practice day of the week, which changes depending on when we're playing. Then we'll do a full padded, then we'll do like a fast Friday, usually walk through Saturdays and travel, and then we'll get out and play on Sundays. But what's interesting is, this year, if we had a bunch of East Coast games, like there was a stretch where we were playing the Bills, and we were playing Washington and Philly and all these East Coast teams. Usually we just stay out there, but this week we had to travel back and forth and keep hopping on the plane and coming back to Cali, and then back to the East Coast, and back to Cali, and back to the East Coast. So I think that sort of threw off the normal routines. And, they try to keep it as normal as possible, but I think this upcoming year, it'll be more back to normal. So I think my experience was not very, but somewhat distorted.
Mm. And what is like traveling every single week, like to different places? Like, I feel like if I was an NFL player, I like to travel, so like that would probably be one of my favorite things. Like, is the travel like fun? And I know about like
absolutely. Like it's the same thing as college. Like if you're on a plane ride and it's all your guys, it's all your boys. It's obviously gonna be a lot of fun. And the practice squad guys, we're all sort of near each other on the plane. And those are the guys that you spend the most amount of time with. So those plane rides are always just the best.
And does your life like sort of like change once you're in the NFL? Like, you feel like you've changed as a person, like because you have this opportunity to play in the NFL, or do you still like feel like you're still the same kid from like high school and still trying to make it?
I'm still the same type of kid. I still have that underdog mentality. I still have that. You prove yourself every single day. But with that being said, I think I've grown. I think I've learned a lot of things because this is your first year. For me, it was first year out of college, first year where, this upcoming year, you don't have school to go to. It's not like summer vacation, then fall school starts. This is, you're in it now.
Your life
so
now.
I wouldn't necessarily, yeah, exactly. So I wouldn't necessarily, I've changed. I would just say that, at least I hope that I've grown up a little bit. That might be naive to say because I probably haven't, but I at least like to think I did.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's always kind of interesting sort of transition. Richard, do you have like anything? You got any comments you want to ask or Michael here?
What were like? Was it like the plane rides and bus rides? Were they weird? Like you had to like space out. I know when COVID kind of ruined a lot. So like, was that like a weird, like uncomfortable like situation, or is it like kind of the same? You get used to it after a while.
Yeah, I think it's different for me because I don't have a term of reference for what it was like before. But I don't think it was that weird. I mean, it's kind of nice because I most of the time I had my own row and you could kind of spread out, which is nice when you're traveling 6 hours one way and then 6 hours back in a 24-hour stretch. So I don't think it was that weird. I think they did a pretty good job at making sure everybody's comfortable. And I guess having a cotton swab up your nose every single day since July, that sort of got old. But again, that's one thing that you kind of just get used to. And thankfully, it wasn't the brain scrape where they're going deep. It was whatever ones that just do the rim of the nose, which is nice.
And that was like every single day, right? I think. Or
We had to test every single day.
The how like you said it wasn't as bad. So like how did you feel about playing NFL? Like what was your sort of opinion on like COVID and like playing with COVID going on? Like did you feel like the NFL handled it pretty good or?
I think they handled it the best way possible. I think that you had to put rules in place in order to stop the spread and make the game as safe as possible. And I think they really tried with everything that they could to make the actual game as safe as possible. And it's unfortunate that some games got canceled, people got it, and it's really unfortunate that that happened. But as far as putting together a good product, I think the NFL and the PA worked pretty well together to be able to put something pretty good together and pretty close to what the sport that we all know and love. And I think it's definitely good when everybody's stuck at home that they have something that they're comfortable with on TV and something to root for. And it's entertainment for the people at home. And I think there is an element of a lot of people need that. A lot of people need that sort of tribalism of we get to see our team on TV and some sense of normalcy. So in that regard, I think it was really, really good and really helpful. We can debate till the end of the days if it was safe or not, but I always felt safe. I always felt the Rams did a really good job. People for the most part, wearing their masks, testing every single day, not doing stupid things and going out and, bringing bring the virus into the actual bubble.
Yeah.
So I think they did a pretty good job about keeping everybody safe.
And I can't remember. Did you guys have any games canceled? Or I know
Didn't have any games canceled. We had some people that we lost to the COVID rock. I was actually on it my first.
Oh yeah.
My very first day that I showed up for training camp, I got put on the COVID list because I was next to somebody for a prolonged period of time who did get it. Thankfully, I never got it, but talk about stress being an undrafted rookie and you show up and they tell you, actually, go home because you might have COVID. And at that point, you're just like.
Did they test you or did they just.
And I tested negative a couple of days. I ended up only missing the first day, which is good. So I didn't miss any football. I just missed like physicals and stuff, which in hindsight, worked in my favor because I just did it the next day and I didn't have to wait in line with all the other rookies. I was just able to speed through everything. So it ended up not being a big deal. It was just a bit terrifying that your shot might be over right at the very first day that you show up to camp.
Yeah. Yeah, that's gotta be a little bit like, we weren't all this, and that's because of COVID, really. Yeah. John, you got anything, or Richard, you wanna ask me anything about like, sort of getting like that sort of process of like COVID and all that?
I know.
Okay, I think we can keep moving on. So the Rams, so y'all went 10-6 last year. Y'all made it to the divisional round. what do you think like the Rams need to do? Like, what do you like that you guys did last year, and what are something that you guys want to improve on for next year to kind of get back in that Super Bowl conversation?
I think every single year we're always going to be in a Super Bowl conversation. When you have big name guys like Aaron Donald, Jalen Ramsey, we just signed Matthew Stafford. Like we have all the pieces necessary. And, Coach McVay always likes to say, consistency is the truest form of performance. And just maintaining that consistency throughout the season, continuing to do all the little things and all the right things. Football is a game where, you can look at it from a macro level and being like game plan and scheme and all that stuff. But I personally like to look at it more like a micro level. If everybody just does the things that they know how to do really, really well, great things are going to happen. We have some tremendous athletes on the field. So I'm super confident coming into the season. I think we have all the right pieces. I think we have, the right group of guys. And, I'm sure we'll add some more in free agency, and I'm sure we'll, we have the draft coming up. So I'm excited. I think that it's more important that we, have a great training camp, everybody does what they need to do in the off season. We'll come back and bust some heads.
Mm-hmm. And you gotta be on the sideline for those playoff games. What is like the difference between like sort of a playoff game and like a regular season? Does your mentality change, or do you go into it the same way?
So somebody told me that you can hear the difference between a regular season game and a playoff game, where everybody hits a little bit harder, everybody's trying a little bit harder, everybody's breathing a little bit heavier. And so for me, that was really true. Like you could hear the difference in the energy being put into the game, which I think is just so much fun. And it just makes, that level of playoff football just so much more exciting, because it does become lose or you go home. So, that to me was really, really exciting.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm a Seahawks fan, so your guys beat us pretty bad. Not too happy about that, but yeah, I mean, I'm sure as a player it's pretty exciting. To go to an NFL like a playoff game.
Absolutely.
Richie, you wanna like ask him about sort of like playoffs or?
I'm gonna say that everyone called me crazy for picking the Rams to beat Seattle. Everyone called me crazy.
Yeah, I wouldn't call you crazy. I could have told you that 2 weeks ago.
I think the problem that game was just our offensive plan was not good. I think the Seahawks.
Yeah, I think Staley put together an awesome defensive plan, and then when our offense is rolling, we're rolling. So we just put together a complete game, and that's really what it takes. And I know Darius Williams had that pick on DK Metcalf, and that's, if you have a play like that in the game, your chances of winning the game just skyrocket, because it just builds so much momentum towards your favor. So games like that, that's why you play football, because they're just the most fun.
Yeah, your defense really, y'all really like shut us down that game. We couldn't really run the ball or really pass the ball. It was crazy. So you say? How excited are you with like Matthew Stafford at that signing? How excited are you for having him as your new QB?
I'm very excited. He's a veteran guy. His experience, he has every tool that he needs, and I think he's going to be a really good fit for McVay's offense. And with the signing of Deshaun Jackson, we got added another deep threat. So I think we got, like I said, a lot of really good pieces that are going to be helpful for us.
Yeah. I'm sure you guys are thinking like the goal is to win the NFC West. Is that like always the mentality?
Goal is to win a Super Bowl.
Get the ring on your finger, that first ring.
Every other game is just entertainment until you make the playoffs, and then you win a Super Bowl. That's it.
Every game is just like a path to the Super Bowl.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, so that's that's kind of what I also want, just like your sort of your lifestyle in the NFL and just your day-to-day life, and what it's like sort of mentally to be like an NFL player. One question I have, like, is, I know you're really early on into your career, but what sort of like impact or legacy do you want to like leave in the NFL?
I'd like to see me being a role model for anybody who's at a small school who wants to make it to the NFL, and not just produce, but be a good contributing player, and know that you don't have to go to Alabama or Ohio State to make it to the NFL and have a great career. that, greatness can come from anywhere. And so, I came from pretty much the smallest possible town in Ohio. And I'm here. So if I can do it there, anybody can do it there. And it's just, falling in love with a sport or a passion and just chasing it until, my mentality is I was going to keep playing football no matter what until somebody told me no. And thankfully, nobody's told me no yet. So I'm still here.
That's sort of like, I know, like you sort of said, like coming from a small school and, sort of getting from a small school to the NFL. That's, a lot of kids, like, also have those sort of goals, and they come from, like, small, like, they don't go to, like, Division I schools, like, in LSU or in Alabama, but they still want to, like, end up in the NFL. So I think you're a pretty good example, like, on what to do.
Yeah. And, and that would 100% be hopefully the legacy I leave behind.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. Richie, do you want to, like, go into your next question, or do you have any?
Yeah, you were saying like you were on the practice squad last year as a rookie, and you're treating this like as your rookie year. So like as a player who's like on track to like hopefully make the team in 2021, what does your mindset change at all going to the season with your preparation and what you're doing now?
I think it changed in that, coming out of college, I didn't really know necessarily what to expect, because, I'd always been, pretty much the best player on the field whenever I was playing football. So, it was hard for me to necessarily know, what things I needed to work on. So then coming into year two, once, as a practice squad player, you take your reps against the ones. So I was playing against, our starting offensive line every single day. And I think I learned a ton of just what the NFL requires is from a physical standpoint, how important technique and everything is. And, you can't just necessarily get away with being a really good athlete anymore. Your technique has to be pretty perfect. So I think this offseason, I've dedicated a lot of time to the technical side of it. And I work with a trainer out here, Eddie. You can see him on my Instagram. He's the best. And so, just being out here and necessarily having a full off season of training technically, and then obviously just staying, football's for big people who want to play the sports. So, just making sure that you're staying strong and, so I now know what to expect coming in, and I know exactly what is required of me coming into this upcoming camp, and I'm super confident about it. I feel really good about where I am in my training.
Yeah, I've always heard like when like college to pros, like it's like everyone's good now. Like everyone's like belongs now. It's more like a mental aspect that you have to really lock into.
I think so. I think that's a good way to put it, in that everybody who's here has been the best athlete on the best team forever. And so now it just becomes, who's willing to put in the work and turn themselves into the best possible version of themselves to be able to play on Sundays.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Like a lot of players, a lot of NFL players, like they can all play. There's like no question on if they can play. Football is just sort of like, now can they dominate over everyone, even though everyone else is like good.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean that's also sort of like a big thing that I had in my mind. Rich, you want to keep going, or?
I gotta ask because you think D tackle the Rams. What is it like having a front row seat to Aaron Donald, and have you learned anything from him, like mentally, physically, emotionally, like
advice?
Yeah, so around him and how he prepares for games, what he's looking for in film, and just the way that his attack is just relentless on offensive linemen. I think you definitely learn a lot mentally from him, and also just the technical side of it. Because if you look at a guy whose technique is perfect, you look at Aaron Donald, like everything he does is pretty much as perfect. Now, football is not a sport of perfection, but Aaron Donald's, pretty much as close to that as possible. And so, yeah, he's just been an absolute monster. And, I would say that's like a huge reason I chose the Rams is you wanted to be around guys like that. You wanted to be around the best players to learn from them. And, I think I've soaked up a ton from him just being around him.
does he go as hard in practice as he does in NFL games, or?
Yeah, pretty much. I do not envy at all our practice squad or backups at offensive line who he just kind of tortures for the entirety of the practice.
And so when you're in practice, do you go up against like the starting offensive line?
Yeah, I do. So the practice squad defensive linemen will run whoever we're playing that week. We'll run their scheme, and it's usually just cards. And we try to run our technique, but in the scheme of the whoever we're playing that week. So you get good reps, you get good technique work, but you also you're giving the guys a look and helping them prepare.
Okay. Yeah, that's sort of a lot of like you said, like the Aaron Donalds. The reason why they're so great is because they go hard in practice and in like games.
They go physical, yeah.
Really,
I think I think you have to go hard in practice because you need those reps, especially as a young guy like me.
Yep.
Treating this like a redshirt year, it's all just about reps. So I was just taking rep after rep after rep after rep against all these starting offensive linemen, guys who've been in the league 8 years. Andrew Whitworth, the biggest human I've ever seen. And just taking reps like that. And I think that's really, really helpful for taking that next step and transitioning from being a really good college player to being a technically sound, professional football player.
What is it like when Andrew's sort of blocking you? Like, is that like, are you sort of like, okay, I haven't gone against somebody this big, or like, is it fun? Or?
So he's a guy who's just, his technique has just been so well defined and refined that, he's seen every single type of pass rush. He's seen, every single type of run block. He's run every scheme. He knows all the tips and the tricks, which is really good because, it sort of becomes like an arms race between offensive line and defensive line, where defensive line is, hitting this move and offensive line is countering it with this, but defensive line are using this when they counter. So, he's a really good guy to learn from as far as going up against, because he's seen everything. So, you gotta try and figure out a way to get around him.
And as a defensive tackle, like, is it sort of like about, because I know like a lot of people like Aaron Donald, it's all about like where they put their hands, and like that's how Aaron Donald gets by people. Is it more about like how fast you are, like your quickness, or is it about like where you put your hand?
It's a little bit of everything. Like you need the speed to be able to move, but you got to have good technique and hand placement. So Coach Henney, our defensive line coach, we hit the hell out of our sled. And so, it's generating power, generating speed, and making sure you have good technique and you're at the right, pressure points, and you have good leverage on guys. So it's a little bit of everything.
Yeah. So sort of like combination of like everything you've lost. And so like how many hours do you guys spend like in practice? Plus like film. Is it like a whole like? How long is that?
A lot. I mean, it changes week to week. So, if we have a Thursday game, it's going to be a really short week. If we have Monday, Rams really good about giving, guys the proper time off. And these guys are all, they're professionals. So, not everything's, I think what's actually required probably doesn't sound like a staggering number, but the work ethic that goes in around that. So let's say if you're required to watch film, in meetings and stuff for a couple hours, as soon as you get home, you're back into the film because, you need to watch more film and you need to prepare. So, and the Rams are really good about allowing guys to prepare how they want to prepare and how they feel the most comfortable. So, you get out of it what you put into it. So if you put in the time, put in the work, watch the film, do the lifts, practice hard, you're going to get a ton out of it and you're going to grow as a player. So I think, the culture of the Rams is really good in supporting that.
Yep. Rick, you want to go into your final question, or you want to add anything to that?
I was going to add something, but it kind of goes into my last question.
Mm-hmm.
So 2 things. Who would you label as like your biggest role model outside of your family? And has there been a player, like you hear all the time, like a veteran mentor and like a young player? Has there been like a player that has done that for you?
Yeah. So to answer your first question, I'm a big Michael Jordan guy. Love everything. When The Last Dance came out, and there was nothing else on TV, nothing else going on in the world. That was like that was amazing. And then as far as like role models, like Aaron Donald, obviously is the best defensive lineman to ever play football ever, period, full stop. The Bosa brothers, I grew up an Ohio State fan, so they're obviously great. And then as far as like guys in the Rams, I think three kind of really important. And there's been so many great guys in the Rams, so I don't want to like say this and exclude anybody, but Brockers is always great because he's very much like the vocal leader of the defense, the loudest voice in the room, and just a super charismatic guy. And is so he's obviously been great as far as like a morale. Greg Gaines, really funny dude. He's a young guy like us. He's only like a year older than us. And he's always, good to crack a joke. Morgan Fox, I think, is a really good comparison for me. So, I've picked his brain a good amount, because he came from a small school. He was on the practice squad, and then now he's with the Panthers on contract number 2. And he's done really good things. So I think that's, a pretty good model for me. And then, and there's been a million other guys that that have helped me along the way. And that's what you get in like a locker room with that many guys is you're going to have connections with, so many different people, and everybody's going to help you out along the way.
No. Personally, I like Michael Jordan, but I'm a LeBron fan. I think LeBron's kind of the GOAT.
You would be wrong.
Do you keep up with basketball or?
Yeah, when I can. I mean, I think I'm not alone in this, but I've been pretty consumed with college basketball at the moment. So I haven't been watching too much NBA recently, but I'll keep track of the Lakers because they're the hometown team, the Raptors because they're obviously my city in Toronto. But I've been pretty much watching every single March Madness game, and my eyes are bleeding from watching so much basketball.
Who are you rooting for to win? Are you going with Gonzaga?
I think you'd be pretty hard to make the case that it's not going to be Gonzaga versus Baylor, and then Gonzaga is going to win. I mean, if you just look at the tournament, there's a lot of really great teams, and then there's Gonzaga, who's just on like a whole nother level. They score at will, they shoot like an NBA team, they move the ball around, they have so many different threats. I think Baylor is probably the best contender to be able to give them problems. But I think Zaga runs away with it.
Yeah, I think it's going to be Gonzaga and Baylor, but I personally have Baylor.
I'm going to say Gonzaga to win the whole thing.
Richie, who do you think is going to win the entire thing? Are you keeping up with March Madness? Are you keeping up with March Madness?
Gone 3 hours into the tournament. I don't see anyone beating
Ohio State then?
I picked Ohio State. I picked Florida State to win it all, and I picked Ohio State. I picked I didn't
Roberts,
pick Abilene
team of
Christian to win.
The greatest team to ever play basketball, Oral Roberts. That run was just so much fun. That's what March is all about, and so much credit to those guys.
I love the upsets.
For the rest of their lives.
It's crazy though. Like UCLA is the 11th seed, and like they're the first 4 team to make it this far. So
carving a path.
Playing with nothing to lose. So I don't see anyone beating Gonzaga. They just look like a professional team.
So I'm the only one.
They just have so many threats. Yeah. What'd you say?
I'm the only one who's going with Baylor.
I mean, I like if you're making a bracket, like if everybody's picking Gonzaga, not to be cliche, but everybody zags, you got to zig and go with Baylor.
Mm-hmm.
I will say I did pick UCLA to beat both Alabama and Michigan.
That's a hell of a pick.
Yeah, I didn't make a. We didn't make a bracket, but like we sort of just talked about it. We made a prediction. Like I went with UCLA, sort of because I like UCLA basketball.
And I said Michigan.
And he went with Michigan.
Yeah. And that was close.
Oh yeah, I mean that's really everything that I have to ask. I want to. That's really like everything I had to ask.
I really appreciate you guys having me on. This is fun.
No, we appreciate you taking time out of your day. We know you have a busy schedule, so this is a big thing for us. Kind of have you.
Our first time meeting you.
A first athlete on the podcast and an NFL player. So getting to talk to you, get to know a little bit more about you and sort of your life, because we're not NFL players, but you are. So sort of like giving us that sort of insight of life in the NFL. So yeah, it's really what I have to ask. Richie, you got any last sort of
No. Thanks for coming on, Mike, and good luck this year. I'll be looking out
definitely.
to see if you're alongside Donald.
Yeah. Appreciate it, guys. Good luck with everything.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
man. That just about wraps up this episode, guys. Make sure you guys check out the Sports Library website, Sports Library Tech website. We got new content and articles coming out every single day. Make sure you guys check out the Sports Library TikTok. We're running up the followers, so make sure you guys run up the likes and the views. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Let's go.
And make sure you guys check out the Sports Library Patreon if you guys are interested in seeing the video podcast with us and Michael here. Make sure you guys go check that out. Again, thank you guys for watching. Thank you, John, again one more time. And
Thank you for having me.
yeah, we'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.
Peace out.